good morning to you all. I'm coming to you from Mercer. I received a invite or request to come on down and just see what's going on. Now, I've gone live a little bit late. We have had a great deal of vehicles already go through, and they've been carrying the New Zealand flag. Now, my understanding is that this is as part of Remembrance Day, the ideas around freedom and democracy that we saw taken away during the 2020, 2021, arguably even the 2022, ideas around freedom, authority, authoritarianism during the Ardern government. So we're here, we're live. There have been many buses going forward. We've had the bike systems going forward. There have been many vehicles with Kiwi flags on them. And we're going to follow behind and see what's going on. Now, it's really interesting as well. Oh, yeah. So we're going to be following along here, and we're going to be just checking and see what's going on. My understanding is that there is going to be a very big event that's occurring in about 5-ish minutes. Many apologies. Let me know if there is any issues with the audio. We are also in an area where internet gets a bit shoddy. We'll see what we can see. So this is Ali Gile driving along with hands-free systems. So don't worry about it, not a problem. I'm not looking at the screen, but I will try every now just to flick the eyes quickly down. Now, it is interesting when I think about today being Remembrance Day, and if we compare that with the Māori Party protests going on at the moment, there are some very interesting differences, like really powerful differences. Probably the first difference that I'm thinking of is the media. The New Zealand mainstream media hated the Freedom Convoy and hated the Freedom Village. They gaslit, they engaged in negative numbers, so I would say purposely, but some might say differently, I would say that they purposely chose to reduce numbers by their count and reckoning. But the facts and figures were separate. The facts were outside of what the media was reporting. And so when you do think about the ideas of the Freedom Convoy, the way the media treated them, calling them racist, homophobes, Islamophobes, misogynists, all the phobes and all the negatives went out there. And it was quite fascinating how that happened. Well, in the Māori Party protest, that's the opposite. They are absolutely in love with the Māori Party protest. They are singing along, they're joining it, they're jumping up and down. They are supporting, and I would say shielding. They are shielding the Māori Party protest as well. It is something that we have seen. They are not impartial. They've taken an absolute opinion on it, and they took an opinion also on the Freedom Convoy. So they've taken a position. I find that real different, and it's polar. It is an absolute opposite position. The other one I'd say, the very big difference is the message. With the Remembrance Day, with whichever grouping the people came under, the very big core group was that the government should not be able to force Kiwis to take the vaccination, or take any vaccination for that matter. That they should not be able to force. And in the lockdown mandate environment, what we saw was the removal of jobs, the removal of privilege and rights that belong to all New Zealanders was taken away by the mandates. You lost your job, you're unable to feed your family, or you were trapped inside your house and you weren't allowed to move out. We saw some of the most authoritarian measures ever being delivered during that lockdown phase. It was fascinating. Now, that was really interesting then, and we look at now the Māori Party protest. Actually, everything's all pretty. What I've noticed is that in the Māori Party protest, people don't quite know what they're there for. They will say things like, for our people, and they'll say things, we're here to stop our rights from being taken away, the Tuitu Te Tiriti, standing up for rights and all that. But when you get down to the nitty gritty, when you ask, okay, well, what specifically are you protesting against, and what in the bill that's coming up, what is it about there that you don't like? You'll find that most of the Māori Party protesters don't actually know. And I'm not saying that in a negative way, because I believe that you may not know fully about something, yet want to support the idea of it anyway. But in the environment of the Māori Party protest, most of the protesters don't even understand the concept around it. They're following what their influences or what their politicians have said, the Māori Party politicians. So it's harder to be able to find out. Whereas in the Freedom Convoy and the Freedom Marches, what was good was if you spoke to the people, almost always it was, we were mandated out of our jobs, we were unable to work, we had to go on sites, but we had to get the jab first, and we didn't want to do that. Or I'm not allowed to hire 50 people, I can only have 15 people, and I need that amount of people to get the job done. So there's a very big difference in terms of what the protesters on both walks knew and do. Now, the other one is the taxpayer funds. This one gets quite uncomfortable. Taxpayer funds. So in the Freedom Convoy and the Freedom Village, it was self-funded. People gave up their own money, their own personal private money. They were working. Some of them were pushed out of jobs, all that, but they paid themselves. What you've got with the Māori Party protest, unfortunately, is a significant amount of politicians. They are taxpayer-funded politicians, whether some career politicians and some new politicians, but they're all taxpayer-funded, and they're all in the mix, that using their power and privilege to increase their share of likes and popularity. But there's essentially taxpayer-funded. Now, that's not the uncomfortable part. That's the eye-rolling, yeah, that's what they do, the politicians do part. Now, the comfortable part is this, is that the Māori Party protest is designed to go for about 9 days. And what the tough part of that is that that's 7 working days. And that becomes very uncomfortable when you realize that we don't have, there's going to be a minority there who've taken the leave. That's what I'm saying, which means quite a lot of that crew will be very possibly funded by the taxpayer as well. And that becomes quite uncomfortable when you see that there's an attack from Māori Party against the government, but at the same time, the government's funding and paying for it. And of course, the government funds come from us. I mean, I support the idea of protests, of Māori Party protests go forward. I think that's fine, but I can't deny that, shucks, I'm working my butt off trying to put food for the family to eat. And even this that we do here it can be a struggle sometimes, because, we love to do this work, but we're all paying for it out of our own pocket. And part of me says that's the way it should be. Whereas taxpayer money should not really be going into the Māori Party protest. It's not supposed to be that way. So that's another very big difference. The Freedom Convoy, the Freedom Village was very significantly, it was entirely self-funded. It was crews who were giving up their own money, their own time, their own lives for that period of time, whereas Māori Party protest has a significant taxpayer dollar in that. So that's another part. The other one is, and a bit of a segue, is the politicians themselves. The politicians absolutely were ordered to not go near the Freedom Convoy, the Freedom Village. None of them did. None of them did at all. All the parliamentarians avoided it like the plague. They were not to. Now, I do know firsthand that a few of them were very much against that and really wanted to get out there and at least have a korero, have a chat with the Freedom Village and the Freedom Convoy, because again, these were Kiwis, New Zealanders of all different types of nations and everything, but they weren't able to. Whereas in this one, the Māori Party protest, what you'll find is that the politicians are swimming in that area. They're loving it. They're singing. They're honging. They're doing everything they can to be seen to be in it. So again, that is another huge difference, a massive difference as well. And even talking about the politicians, just a little prophetic thing there is that Parliament is going to treat the Māori Party protest far differently than it did the Freedom Convoy and the Freedom Villages. You had, of course, with the Freedom Village, the police brutality was quite extreme. In fact, I've spent a couple of years growing up in a cop household. Right? There was a part of my life was about 2-3 years where I grew up in a police household, and I loved the idea of the police, and we need them. And I've worked along great police as well, absolutely awesome police. I've been proud to even send some of my clients that way as well, as in helping youth to get in with Genesis, Blue Light, these programs that were made by absolutely well-meaning police and really good guys, good people. But what we saw with the Freedom Convoy and the Freedom Village was we saw police brutality. One of our people did up a bit of a meme recently. It's gone a bit viral, where it shows the very clear difference. You've got on one side for the Māori Party protests, the police hogging up, and on the other side, you've got that police officer who's full body leaning on that boy's head, right? And the protesters were not being violent. That's the thing. In those first few days, there was absolutely none. The violence was from the police side, which was just shocking, really shocking. So again, massive difference. And sorry, I'm going. The Freedom Convoy, the Freedom Village, of course, was treated. As soon as it got on, the police immediately engaged in authoritarian measures. They beat them, dragged them out by hair, leaned on body parts. They broke sternums. This is actually these. I'm not talking smack here. These are things that have been admitted by the police. They then engaged in heavy-duty batons, riots. The Trevor Mallard, the speaker, he also allowed the usage of sound devices, of less than lethal sound devices, which was extraordinary. I didn't believe it at first, but Trevor Mallard, it ended up being true that Trevor Mallard made the order for sound cannons to be targeting the people of the Freedom Convoy. It was extraordinary. I mean, I don't know, but it sounds to me like that would breach some type of international code for how you treat your own domestic populations. He also made sure that the sprinklers were on, and to have a continuous dousing. This is also with Kiwis where there were children present and there were elderly present. There was all sorts of people. And not only that, he had sound running 24/7. So he tried to drown people out with water. He tried sound cannons. He tried constant noise. I mean, these are torture methods. These are methods used for torture. So the way that Parliament will treat the Māori Party protest will be different. I'm calling that right now. It will be different. I'm going to assume that there'll be a Parliament approved karanga. There'll be Parliament approved everything to go on the site as well. So Parliament treated the Freedom Convoy like rubbish and as if they were the enemy. They will treat the Māori Party protest as a wonderful thing and happy thing, and absolutely we want your rights and privileges and freedoms honoured. That's where they'll go. That's my conjecture. That's what I believe will happen. Lovely. So I've just been flicking. We are in the midst of this convoy currently. This is a remembrance convoy about the freedoms to be fought for, democracy. I see. And I thought that I was at the very back. So there's a long line of vehicles and cars and buses. Behind me, there's actually a great deal of cars as well, all flying the New Zealand flag. It's really beautiful. I was asked to come along and to be a part to see if we can witness what's going to happen here. So it's quite interesting. I am quite curious to know how it's going to go. I can tell you that in front of us we've got multiple buses. I believe there's about 8 buses fully packed with people, and that's in addition to the many cars that have already been back and forward. Just seen some of the comments going through. Absolutely wonderful. What I love about disagreements is we should be able to argue these things. And that is actually another difference that I find with the Māori Party protest, is that you're not allowed to talk about it. That's a crazy thing. So I've been trying to mix up and discuss this with some people, but they don't want to talk about it. It's you're either with us or you're against us ism. I have seen a couple of things on TikTok where they're saying that if you don't follow the Māori Party protests, then I can't remember what they're calling it. They're calling it some other thing, but it is essentially a Māori Party protest. That's the essentials of it. But when you discuss it, they just say, "Oh no, if you're not with us, you're against us." There's those comments. You've got comments such as, "Is the white man? It's against the white man taking over again." There's ones about they're trying to genocide Māori. There's trying to take away rights of Māori. And my question has always been, what are you talking about? What specifically are you referring to? See, here I'm driving in a Remembrance or the Freedom Convoy. We all know why. There's a very central reason why the mainstream media were very much trying to break that, but it was always solid throughout. There was no change or differential. Whereas in the Māori Party protest, very few really know why they're there or are able to articulate the issue. So yeah, it's quite extraordinary. Shem is saying that absolutely disappointed. I love the work these guys did during the COVID protests. So Shem, I'm going to make an assumption that you are part of the Māori Party protest. Hey, good on you. No worries. Got no problem with the idea of protesting as well. I think that's fine. My question would be to you is, what essentially is the argument against the bill that David Seymour, who is not a friend to conservatives. I am a conservative. Many of my people who I represent are conservatives, not all, but most. So there is that conservative element. But we know why we like or dislike the bill that David Seymour has put forward. But Shem, if you're able to, can you tell us why? What is the major problem with the bill that David Seymour has put forward? And I'm aware that it's easy to say, well, it's going to suppress Māori rights. Well, how is that exactly? What part of the bill? Because the bill is released, it's in the public, and we don't know really what that's about. It's definitely not about freedom. If anything, the bill seeks to allow freedom and equality to exist between New Zealanders. So anyway, we're here. We're rolling through. We're driving slowly, and again, that's because the vast majority of this traffic is made up of the Freedom Convoy people as well. You've also got NZD SOS, and they are celebrating Remembrance Day more closer to the city. Now, my understanding is here, this particular group is moving towards the domain, where there'll be some speeches, a big haka perhaps. So that'll be great. Lisa has said it's a protest, mate, not an occupation. They aren't setting up a village there. That's fair. Absolutely, no, that's fair. However, I would point out that when they first set up there, they weren't building all of these things of the village element. They were there first, but it was ruthlessly treated from the second that they set onto the Parliament site. So that whereas that's fair in terms of the Māori Party protest. It looks like it is a protest that they're not going to do a sit-in. I wonder though. I have to ask, if it was a sit-in, would Parliament do anything though? Because I'll guarantee. Well, I'll say this: I will put my money on it that Trevor Mallard wouldn't have done anything if it was the Māori Party protest. And the reason for that, and the reason why I like to say that, is because we've had sit-in protests by different groups of different hapu, different iwi before, and what happens is no one touches it. It's very, very seldom that it happens, and only after negotiations heavily break down. There are exceptions, of course, but on the whole, yeah, they don't. No one touches them. It's just a very expected thing. Ian has said Here we go, talking about rights. The country belongs to everyone. Get over yourself. Yep, and that's right. And that's what I have discovered with the Māori Party protest is that there's some misunderstanding about the treaty, about Te Tiriti o Waitangi, is that they're just following what woke academics, the academics, what they're saying about it. And these, of course, are very far to the left academics. They are not unbiased. They are very much impartial to a side, and it tends to be on the side where they want. So there does seem to be a great deal of issues. Troy Allen, they didn't do anything last time Māori set up an occupation on the Parliament lawn. Oh, that's right. Yes, that's right. That's right. I do remember that. Yes, that's right. So they didn't do anything. And again, so this is quite amazing that the Freedom Convoy was Māori, Pacifica, was Indian, was Asian, but they were all Kiwis. It was the most diverse group you could ever find. You had conservatives and libertarians. You had socialists. I actually know some socialists who went down there as well. So you did. You actually had a great deal of different ideologies all being represented, different ages, generations, different viewpoints. You really did. But they were all Kiwis. And that was always a really good thing about the Freedom Convoy. Just to let you know, just give an update to everyone, there are now police. There are police starting to wend their way from the back area. Their lights are on. They are, it looks like, yeah, I'm unsure as to whether the police are trying to push through or if they are trying to make a barrier from the rear section. Behind me, there are many vehicles, and they've got a lot of New Zealand flags out there as well. I am also seeing STMS, that's your traffic management systems. So it looks like they might be doing something there. And oh my gosh, there are Kiwi flags on them too. Yeah, I have to say, one of the lovely things that I have seen during the Freedom Convoys, whether you agree with it or not, is that the people themselves, the groups, were very much looking after each other, helping each other, and it didn't matter what religion, what class you were, what group you belonged to. It was a very powerful time, and we saw it just all over the place. So the convoy here, definitely a bit slower. It looks like something might be happening soon. Yep, police. Okay, so I'm just seeing behind me that there are police. They are setting up a cordon in one certain area. And there's another couple of police cars who are sirens, lights on, and they are following the STMS trucks. Oh, there's more police off to the side here. So whatever is about to happen looks like it might be happening soon. Yeah, different areas are being cordoned, it looks like. Right now, we are on the top of the Bombay Hills. We're on State Highway 1, about to head north. We're still heading north, sorry. Northwest, technically. Looks like a beautiful day for it in Auckland. It has been I enjoy the free press. I used to be one of those people who would buy a Herald. I'd have my ciggy, I'd have my coffee, and then I would just read through the Herald, the big paper version, back when I was still smoking and all that. And I loved the Herald. I remember reading it from cover to cover. Always enjoyed it. But unfortunately, over the last 5 years, well, arguably perhaps 10 years, it's become progressively more and more liberal. One might say more to the left. And so what we're seeing now is this difference between the way that they will report on the state, if they report at all, because remember, the New Zealand mainstream media do not like this. So if they do report on this particular event, and if they report on the NZD SOS event and other Remembrance Day events, you will find that the media purposely put it in a very bad, a negative light. And it's a very sad process. It's a very sad day when we can predict what the media will do. This group will be looked upon quite severely. They will try to use words that make us feel like in a negative sense towards them. However, for the Māori Party protest, they will specifically give glowing terms. They will falsify. Oh, that was another one that did get brought up multiple times, is that the New Zealand mainstream media are falsifying numbers. It's okay to get numbers wrong of crowds, but the New Zealand mainstream media have been noted to do two things. When it's a Māori Party protest, they are falsified. So they're talking about tens of thousands of people when there clearly were not. All the AI models and all of the groupie shots that police will use to estimate numbers, that was totally off. And yet on the other side, for the Freedom Convoy and for the Freedom Village, the media also reported very low numbers, tried to downplay the whole thing. They do the same for abortion, for example, where those people marching for the unborn babies, they'll stand up. Mainstream media will tend not to report on them, but if they do, it's always trying to get the negative approach. Christine's come there as well. Christine's saying, wasn't Māori who set up Occupation Del Parliament? Only a small set of concerned Kiwis decided to camp on the grounds. There was only 3 to 4 people, then it exploded. Ah, okay, cool. And Chris has gone, Chris Axby, when it was sold by Wilson and Horton, it became a foreign-owned media, not really New Zealand Herald any longer. And that's fair enough. We do find a lot of from Yahoo NZ, and we find from Stuff and Newsroom. A little bit of Newsroom, but they'll reproduce articles from other well-known leftist media outlets, CNN, MSNBC, The View. These are very strongly to the left channels and outlets. And it's interesting, but when you look at the near economic ruin that New Zealand is in, you can point straight at the mandates and the lockdowns. If you look at the social struggles that we have right now, you can look at the lockdowns and the mandates. Even my own role. So my job that I do is I go around the country and let's just say I do a few things and I talk to a lot of people. But it's very interesting that in many places the word pairing "be kind" has become a trigger point for a lot of people. And I would say a good half of these people are not even political. They're not political people. They don't really care about politics. But that word pairing, "be kind," has become a source of a trigger point for a lot of people, that they get feelings of concern, anxiety, anger, and it's really sad. It's really sad to see that happening. The government we regard the government, especially within today Remembrance Day, we regard the government of being problematic during the 2020 to 2023 phase. But the truth is, the fact is that from 2017 to 2020 was also a shocking level of government authoritarianism and left ideology. One example that I'll give is Farmac. Is that in 2018, I believe it was, the New Zealand government at the time, the Ardern Labour Party government, they that's what they put forward. It was only the following year that they decided to put in money to cancer drugs specifically. So they chose to fund puberty blockers for children, hormone suppressants, so the whole transgenderism pills, the pills that the transgender people who are going through it, that's what they have to take for the rest of their life to suppress their biological reality. But the Labour Party decided to make that the priority 1 year before cancer patients, and that was an absolute shock. That was the Ardern Labour government. You also had the buyback, the gun buyback, which was basically the gun confiscations, where the law-abiding community, the gun owners, the legal gun owners, were treated like criminals essentially, but just given a little bit of allowance to get their guns in. But then if we have a look at that, if we look at the, I hope it's okay to say, the scumbag called Brenton Tarrant, the way that he got his gun license was an absolute farce. He was supposed to, for minimum voting procedures, he was supposed to give the names of 2 people who were character references who knew him personally. He gave 2 online friends. I think it's worse. I think they're online gaming friends. So they had never met him before. They stated that they had never met him before either, as in real life, only online. And I think it was online gaming. Then the other part is, of course, is that the minimum vetting is that you have to be able to go to the applicant's address, home address, and have a discussion with them there and talk about it there. Well, he said no. Tarrant said no. We'll meet at my workplace. So 2 huge red flags that were never considered allowed Tarrant to get that license, which led to him being able to get the other pieces that he needed to create that vicious weapon. So the police are not, there's no real self-evaluation, no real self-reflection on it. They seem to just treating the legal gun-owning community as a whole. And of course, what happened when the gun confiscations happened? Gun crime skyrocketed, absolutely skyrocketed. Quite extraordinary how that happened. So it is Remembrance Day. We are here. I'm just here coming behind this group. I thought I was one of the last ones, but I'm not. Turns out there's a whole bunch of other New Zealand Kiwi flags behind me. Some people have plastered it on their bonnets. But it's really, again, it's a good reminder of the freedoms and the democracy that we do have to protect, that we did see to be sliced away, slice by slice, during that lockdown period. As I said, NZDSOS, they are also holding their own, and I believe some other groups are holding their own remembrance for today as well. The group that I'm in at the moment is the Freedom and Coalitions group. This is headed by Brian Tamaki. Brian Tamaki is a very outgoing preacher for the Destiny Church. He has had a lot of criticism in the past. One massive thing, though, is that he has indeed stood up for his rights. He's definitely put his money where his mouth is. He went to jail for it. He went to jail for breaching COVID rules, the Ardern rules that were, again, very authoritarian. They gave an extraordinary amount of power to one person. Brian Tamaki was one of the few people, one of the few public leaders to stand up and stand against it. And one could argue that it would have been easier for him not to. It would have been easier for him not to, but he did. He did stand up. He did make sure that he looked after his people. And one thing of note that when I've been covering all of these protests, I've been covering different Māori Party protests before in the past. Also some of the Palestinian, the Gaza, the Hamas protests. I've been following those as well. But all of the coalition and rights protests have been very well disciplined, very well coordinated, very carefully looked after. It's quite extraordinary. the last time that I was at a Freedom and Rights Coalition style protest or rally was the Posey Parker rally. Also, the last one I went to, which was quite large and quite fun, was the Posey Parker rally. The Posey Parker rally up in Albert Park, that was not fun. That was horrific. That was really scary. You basically had a group of trans activists who were brutal, who were very angry from the get-go, and they wanted to engage in violence. We saw that Posey Parker himself was attacked by a male who wants to call himself a female, and Posey Parker had to be taken out of there. The police eventually helped, really shocking to see that they had left it. And it's also interesting that the main organizer of the police response, which was found by many people to be sadly, and video footage showed a horrific amount of apathy from the police, but the organizer was a trans person himself. I'm not sure if it's a male, female, female, male. The look is a bit odd. No disrespect. So in that one, that was a Posey Parker. The speaker, who I think, or I might be wrong, but the demagogue who was at the top there, a ship container, he was with a Air2 union organization, or at least he was around the flags, and he was screaming at the crowd, the mob, who had just physically attacked Posey Parker. He then directed them to attack people at the rally down at Aotea Square, where Freedom Rights Coalition were speaking, and they were speaking against the transgenderism being pushed into our children in New Zealand schools. So at that time, the mob ended up going down there, and that's when they met a wall of Brian Tamaki's group called Man Up, and that wall just stopped the violent trans activists in their tracks. The violence from trans activists was extraordinary. The restraint from Man Up and Tū Tangata was quite extraordinary as well. That they restrained themselves. I was watching and I was thinking, at any time they could knock them out effectively. They could engage in the same level of violence, but the outcome would be far different. But the restraint shown by Tū Tangata and Man Up was extraordinary. Whatever people want to say about him, about his group, they are well disciplined. They are very careful, and the restraint is high. It's a very high amount of restraint. So we're coming along, I believe. Rama turn-off is coming up soon. Like I said, it's a lovely day for this, for whatever this is. Flags in the background, I cannot see because this bus has a big butt, so I'm unable to see around it. Also, at this time, we do remember those who have been vaccine injured. Some of the tragedies that have happened with people who also passed away from it, and the really heartbreaking ways that it did happen. You've got people who, to this very day, are struggling with their injuries. Shakes, insomnia, spots, difficulty finding a job, difficulty keeping attention focused. So our hearts do go out to those people. One of the good things but sad things is the level of trust in mainstream media. One News, New Zealand Herald, ZB as well in many cases, Newsroom, Spin-Off, all of these different places that they lost so much public trust. And when the press were saying things which were clearly not true, every single time that happens, the trust goes down a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And I am sad because I think that any democracy needs to have an independent, an unbiased or independent media. I see one of those parts before, Newsroom and Spin-Off, I probably shouldn't put in there. They are not ashamed, or That's the wrong word, but they're very proud to be called to the left. I think they don't hide it. That's what I mean. They very much are to the left. They are leftists, and so be it. That's what they do. We're moving forward. Wherever you are, if you are holding a Remembrance Day, we hope that it's a peaceful one and a safe one. Look after yourselves as we're going through this. It is indeed important to remember that freedom, the cost of freedom itself, was never free. This is one of those very important days, and you're going to find. I'm going to make this call out that there's some people there. I believe one of those people was a gentleman who was removed from the public gallery of Parliament when he was calling out in Parliament itself. I think that there is some activity which is fine, which takes us, I guess, again to the differences between the Freedom Convoy and the Māori Party protest. The haka that happened in Parliament just recently, it was very inappropriate, I think. And effectively, you should be respecting the place where you are. There were discussions, or the time to do a haka would not be where Te Pāti Māori did their haka. I mean, if this was the old days and there was a full-on speech given between different iwi, and they'd come together for pōwhiri, and then in the middle of the whai kōrero, suddenly one group jumps up and starts doing a haka. That would be quite, wow. That's basically calling for stepping two. So we're traveling again. Now this time we're traveling with a little bit of speed here. Barnabas. All right, Barnabas, I'm sorry. I'm going to try to read this, but I've got to flick. Make sure I'm not being illegal and make sure I'm being safe as well. Thank you for your live stream, your comments, answers to comments. Thank you for truth that you're spreading several lies. The government wants full control of the country without being accountable to Māori who are trying to preserve the lands, waters, and the livelihood of Māori. Te Ao Māori is a different way of looking at our government, our family units, governance of ourselves and ways. Why does this viewpoint matter? It is because Māori or Te Ao Māori is about preserving I do apologize, not sure why, but that comment goes into ... Also, maybe you're going to keep on writing, that's fine. So in terms of, no, absolutely fair. Love the idea of bringing all of that stuff up. First off, Te Ao Māori, my strong, I don't think Te Ao Māori exists, but I'm going to qualify that. The reason why I don't think it exists is because different iwi, different rohi, different ropu have hold different certain areas. There are a few universal principles for sure. The idea of pōwhiri, but Te Ao Māori is it's a bit of an odd one because, well, which Te Ao Māori are you talking about? Are you talking about Te Arawa Te Ao Māori, or Ngāti Raukawa Te Ao Māori, or Kaitahu Te Ao Māori, or even Ngāpuhi Te Ao Māori, and one of the three main Ngāpuhi streams. So Te Ao Māori seems to be very much dependent on the area or the iwi that is in who are in those certain areas. So that's the first thing I'll say about Te Māori. In terms of the other one, the livelihood, I mean, with full hardcore respect, and I love to engage in this. I don't think, no. In fact, not even I don't think it. Livelihood for Māori is not being affected at all. If you want to know the brutal truth,